Out-of-wedlock births are increasing dramatically in the United States and around the world. I'm Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action, and joining me in studio, Shawn Akers, Vice President of Middle Eastern Affairs with Liberty Counsel. Our friends at the Baptist Press are reporting that the number of babies born to unmarried couples who are living together in America has increased dramatically during the past decade, according to a new report by the National Center for Health Statistics. About 23% of the reported births in the study, based on face-to-face interviews of 22,000 men and women, Shawn, from 2006 to 2010, were to unmarried heterosexual couples who were cohabitating when the child was born. In 2002, the figure from a similar study was 14%. The numbers are going up, and as we see, the institution of natural marriage under attack through the pushing of the ridiculous and oxymoronic notion of so-called same-sex marriage, for instance, we see that the value of the institution of marriage has gone down. And I've often said that same-sex marriage, for instance, which is counterfeit marriage, this is akin to what happens when you see money, the dollar, counterfeited. If you introduce counterfeit money into commerce, the value of the dollar decreases. If you introduce counterfeit marriage and no-fault divorce and shacking up as the norm and all of these different attacks on the institution of marriage, then the value of marriage decreases. So we really shouldn't be surprised that as marriage is under attack as an institution, that out-of-wedlock birth rates are skyrocketing.
You know, Matt, this is one of those fundamental attempts. If you read any of the leftist literature, the dismantling of the nuclear family is an absolute must to bring about the type of extreme leftist revolution that so many want. This has been true, by the way. It's been recognized in past societies. I mean, even some of the more extreme examples were even Athens and others that quite literally chose precisely how people would be corralled and what unions they would be forced into, and away from this idea of a mother and a father and a nuclear family. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be any surprise at all. These seeds have been planted, have been well watered, have germinated, and have sprouted up in bumper crops. According to this report, 23%, Matt, 23% of the 22,000 men and women interviewed between 2006 and 2010 are the number of births associated. I mean, that's amazing that nearly a quarter, if that applies to the nation at large, then you're talking about nearly a quarter of the births in the United States falling outside of the marriage concept. There are tremendous ramifications for this.
Yeah, the ramifications, the societal ramifications are devastating. We know studies have shown, for instance, over and over again, that children raised without a father overwhelmingly are more likely to engage in criminal activity. Our prisons are full of them. We know, and you know intuitively, the way that God designed marriage and family, a man and a woman within the bonds of marriage, and marriage is a covenant relationship. Ostensibly a commitment for a lifetime. Doesn't always work out that way. People die. There are divorces happen, but that is the gold standard. And when we deviate from that, devalue marriage, all of these out-of-wedlock births, there are men that are impregnating multiple women, and it's kind of a machismo thing in some cultures right here in the United States, and that creates an environment where kids don't have the stability of a mother and a father, and that's why the government, that's why society has conferred a benefit upon marriage throughout history for tax purposes and so forth, which has also been under attack, but because marriage confers a benefit upon society. That's being undermined. It's by design. Those who are pushing, the notion of so-called same-sex marriage are at the forefront in undermining the institution of natural marriage. It isn't about, gay and lesbian people, for the most part, the political movement, they're not concerned with the rights of these individuals to marry. They don't want the white picket fence. This is about tearing down the white picket fence, and we see that happening. And I have come up recently. It dawned on me that so-called same-sex marriage, to use the term marriage isn't even appropriate. It's not same-sex marriage. It's mock marriage. It's because it's not real marriage. It's a mock marriage, and same-sex marriage and the attacks on marriage mock God and his design for the institution of marriage. When God will not be mocked, Shawn, and as we turn our face from God relative to marriage and in our larger culture on a number of these issues of morality and sexual morality, why should we be surprised when God turns his face from us?
Well, marriage has been under attack from so many different levels, Matt. I mean, it hasn't been but just a few years ago that the major attack on marriage was simply rising and easier divorce rates. Now you see here by this article that the cohabitation is largely impacting marriage among even heterosexual communities. And so you got to ask yourself, if 23% are being born outside of marriage altogether, another very large percent are suffering the breakup of their homes early in life. The fact is that many children in the United States are not being raised in a nuclear family. They're not being raised in the place that was originally the source of their education, the founding of their worldview, the founding of their ideas. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Because that means that the state all of a sudden has the moral authority to step in and to provide what we couldn't get it together to provide for ourselves. And in fact, the state now, you've seen through the homeschool movement and several others, that the state literally often attacks those that would try to provide those type of foundations and worldview teachings to their children to force them into a state system. This is a very godless approach that says, Matt, the end result of all of this is that the next generations, those that are coming up, those that will be tomorrow's voters and leaders, the state would like to shape their views. It would like to shape their education. It would like to shape their norms. It would like to shape their values. It would like to shape their worldviews. So really you see, especially when you read things, you and I have discussed Saul Alinsky on several times in private occasions. When you see this need in Alinsky's mindset to bring chaos and then to reorder it in your own self-image, that's precisely what you see here, is that the nuclear family and marriage, which is the glue of the nuclear family, was designed to perpetuate Judeo-Christian households. So in order to remove God from American society at every level, you can try it from the top down with elected officials, but these folks, these leftist thinkers, understood very well that the only way that you really remove God from
Bottom
society is from the bottom up, and you have to do that by dismantling this Judeo-Christian idea of nuclear family sealed by marriage.
The security and order that comes with a healthy marriage between mom and dad, and creating an environment to raise good citizens, not to say that kids raised in a single family home are not good citizens, but that as an institution, as a gold standard rule of thumb, that is under attack. And you're right, it is by design, because the more out-of-wedlock marriages there are, the more mom and dad are replaced by the nanny state. In the nanny state, we know the Department of Education, under this administration, we know that the National Education Association and others, they understand all too well that those who control the minds of the youth control the future, because the children are the future. So in order to frame the future, they have to frame the education and control the minds of children. And if mom and dad are out of the picture, that leaves the nanny state to step in where they are not. Liberty Counsel, this is why We are at the forefront of defending the institution, the natural institution of marriage, the institution of natural family, because we too understand that children are the future, and we are standing in defense of children, in defense of the nuclear family, in defense of mom and dad, and in defense of our future. To join the Liberty Counsel team, go to lc.org or give us a call, 800-671-1776.